Satyamayi Parame Satyam Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyoti Aravinda Satyam Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyoti Aravinda Satyam Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyoti Aravinda. So the title of our talk today is Freedom from the Mirage. We all know what a mirage is. Somebody read it as freedom from marriage. So anyway, freedom from mirage. A mirage is, just to recapitulate, if you're very thirsty in a desert and you, because of the play of light on the sand, you imagine water in the sand and you go towards it. So it's an optical illusion. It's a mirage. So you're very thirsty, you see water in the middle of a desert and you go there really feeling happy that now I'll get to drink water. But you reach there and there's no water. And the mirage will go on happening. Now this is how we are. If we live life without a concept of the divine presence, it's really a desert, right? And we are always thirsting for happiness. And we feel that this person will give me happiness. I'll go there that evening, I'll have so much fun. I'll get this shoes or that cloth online, I'll be happy. So those are the different mirages which we feel we'll go there and we'll be happy, but we get it and it doesn't really make us happy, right? So often we find that we are so looking forward to a particular evening. You go there and okay, it was okay, nothing much came of it. Or you really feel you'll meet this person and they'll make you really happy. And sometimes they do, but very often you're disappointed. Or whatever we feel will make us happy, somewhere down the line disappoints us. And sometimes the opposite mirage, we are so sure that that thing will make us unhappy, but when we actually go into it with our consciousness and faith, we find that was also an opposite mirage. It didn't really make me that unhappy, provided I went into it with the right consciousness. So either way, this thought that this will make me happy or that thought that this will make me unhappy, both are mirages. So, and yet we are caught in the cycle. We've experienced this umpteen number of times that they are mirages, but yet we buy into it every time. Even right now, you're with me, but your thoughts are buying into different mirages, right? Background, there's a thought, this will make me happy, this will make me unhappy, and I just get pulled by it. So how do I get freedom from the mirage? Not by resisting thought, because whatever I resist will persist. The more I tell myself I should not look to this thought to make me happy, the more I'll gravitate to that thought. The more I tell myself I shouldn't run away from that thought, the more I'll gravitate to it. So we have to be in a state of what John Klein, a master from Tiruvannamalai, says, welcoming. To welcome every thought that comes. How? Treat every thought as a child which is playing. Now, if the child tells you, come, we'll fly down the steps and have fun, you'll smile amusedly at a child. You won't tell the child to shut up, right? And if the child tells you, don't go there, there's a monster in that room, you won't not go there. You'll just smile and welcome both ways. Whatever the child's saying, it's a play, you'll welcome it. So to stay in this state of welcoming where you resist nothing, where you just observe and you let it be. Okay? So now let's open the PDF I've sent you. Brother Bijal has sent you. The first one, words of Karen Miller from Paradise in Plain Sight. She says, the nature of life is impermanence. One day it'll get your attention. Reality might dawn in a single blow or accumulate in 1,000 cuts, but one way or the other you'll see that things change. Nothing is solid. Everything disappears. In 1,000,000 billion ways the world will fail you. How can you bear it? So she's saying the nature of life is impermanence, and that's why the nature of life is optical illusion, the mirage. I spend a beautiful evening with Nash today. I get attached to it. Anything that gives me pleasure, I get attached to. Now I'm thinking I'll make it regular. Every week I'll spend one day with him and it'll give me pleasure. But it won't, because of impermanence. Next week I'll be a different person, Nash will be a different person. The same experience won't happen and I'll always be disappointed. So everything that I'm holding on to is disappearing, what the Buddha calls anicca. And when you live with this understanding, you don't hold on to anything very tightly. If you'll remember that whatever you're storing in your pocket, and every pocket has a hole through which it will slip out, you'll be more generous. You won't want to hold on to it, right? Because it's going to go. So supposing I spend one evening with a friend of mine and I have a great time, I want that to repeat. It won't repeat. And then I'll get possessive. That friend should reserve that evening for me only. If she gives it to anyone else, I'm upset. But if I understand that this pocket I'm storing the friend in anyway has a hole, it's going to slip out, I'm not going to be so possessive. Anyway, my friend doesn't belong to me. Everyone belongs to the energy that they are. That is God. So let the universe enjoy the energy that my friend is. The friend anyway doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the universe. So everything disappears. In 1,000,000 billion ways, the world will fail you. How can you bear it? Now the answer, how can you bear it? Usually we think life begins with a momentous bang when we are born, right? We think it's a momentous bang. So long ago we can't remember. For most of us it's so long ago we can't remember. And ends with a whimper when we die. So long from now we aren't worried. We always feel death is very far away. We are not worried about it. But the Buddhist view is a bit different. Neither life nor death is a one-time shot. We are born, we die 6 billion times a day, and the entire universe along with us. Really? How is it that we say we are born and die 6 billion times a day? There again we have to go back to quantum physics. We've explored the whole model about matter, whatever we call solid really being energy in movement, blinking in and out of existence billions of times in a day. So every moment we are born and we die billions of times, but we just don't know it. We are born and we die 6 billion times a day, and the entire universe along with us. Really, what we experience as just one measly little life is actually the world's biggest light show, appearing and disappearing with such inconceivable speed that we can't perceive it. Each of us, each moment, is like a blazing solar flare or starburst, gone by the time we read about it. So beautiful. If we go back to the quantum physics model, Karen Miller is saying what we experience is just one measly little life, our one life, is actually the world's biggest light show, appearing and disappearing with such inconceivable speed that we can't perceive it. Each of us, each moment, is like a blazing solar flare or starburst, gone by the time we read about it. So now we come to this passage from Savitri, page 546. The forest with its emerald multitudes, clothed with its show of hues, vague empty space. This is describing Savitri's experience of the forest once she's achieved the silent mind, right? So the forest with its emerald multitudes, clothed with its show of hues, vague empty space. A painting's colors hiding a surface void that flickered upon dissolution's edge, appearing and disappearing, dissolving. The blue heavens, an illusion of the eyes. Savitri could see that the trees, the forest, everything was an appearance of energy blinking in and out of existence. It wasn't substantial, it wasn't real. That flickered upon dissolution's edge. The blue heavens, an illusion of the eyes, roofed in mind's illusion of a world. Yet, something was there behind the fading scene. So whatever the eye saw was a fading scene, it was blinking in and out of existence. But something was there behind the fading scene. Wherever she turned, at whatsoever she looked, it was perceived, yet hid from mind and sight. The one and only real shut itself from space and stood aloof from the idea of time. So whatever she saw was unreal, it was blinking in and out of existence. But as Savitri says, in the mind's silence, the transcendent acts, and the hushed heart hears the unuttered word. So the unuttered word was that presence behind. So what is not visible to the eyes, when you see it from in another dimension, that's the unuttered word. So Savitri could sense that. Yet something was there behind the fading scene. Wherever she turned, at whatsoever she looked, it was perceived, yet hid from mind and sight. The one only real shut itself from space and stood aloof from the idea of time. Its truth escaped from shape and line and hue. All else grew unsubstantial, self-annulled. This only everlasting seemed true. Our last time's topic was God alone is, I am not. So this was her experience. God alone was, appearance was not. Everything was God to her vision. All else grew unsubstantial, self-annulled. This only everlasting seemed true, yet nowhere dwelt. It was outside the hours. This only could satisfy the labor of sight, but sight could not define for it a form. This only could appease the unsatisfied ear, but hearing listened in vain for a missing sound. This answered not the sense, called not to mind. It met her as the uncaught, inaudible voice that speaks forever from the unknowable. It met her like an omnipresent point. What a beautiful phrase, omnipresent point. Omnipresent is present everywhere. So a point which is present everywhere, we can't conceive it, right? It met her like an omnipresent point, pure of dimensions. A point has no dimensions, right? In geometry, that's the definition of a point. It has no length, breadth, height. It met her like an omnipresent point, pure of dimensions, unfixed, invisible. The single oneness of its multiplied beat, accentuating its sole eternity. It faced her as some vast noughts, naught is emptiness, zero, vast noughts, immensity, an endless no to all that seems to be, an endless yes to things ever unconceived. So beautiful. Her mind was in that silence which said neti neti, no, to everything, every thought, every mirage that offered itself, no, 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 but an endless yes to things ever unconceived. Now these are writings of John Klein. Question to him by a student: how can I become free from this limitation, the sense of being an individual entity? Because so long as I feel I exist, the I will keep pulling me towards mirages. This will make you happy, this will make you unhappy. So the question is, how can I be free from this limitation, the sense of being an individual identity? John Klein replies, first welcome all that you think you are. Don't say no to it. When you fully welcome all that you take as yourself, you will suddenly find yourself in openness, and you will see that this and not your assumptions about your character and so on is your real nature. So, we play a very funny game with ourselves. Every thought that comes, somewhere we are resisting it. Attachment is also a resistance because we are resisting it going away. And aversion is also a resistance because we don't like it. So we are generating a sense of I with our thoughts, and then the fuel for that generation is our resistance. So the whole of a large part of yoga is really dropping resistance. What is surrender? It's dropping resistance to what is, right? We say I'm surrendering to mother, but that's good at some level, but beyond a point we are surrendering to our notion of mother. I'm not saying mother is a notion. If anything's real, mother is real. But we all have a concept of her which is a notion. So somewhere we are surrendering to that notion, which is also a good stepping stone, but we can't end over there because we are surrendering to a notion. The real surrender comes when we surrender to life, which is the real body of mother. Where is life lived except in us, in our thoughts, in our emotions, in our physical sensations? So Mother is giving herself to us as our notion of ourself. Do you understand that? Every moment we are a secretion of the Mother, right? Obviously, everything is a secretion of the Mother. Everything is a universal precipitate. So every thought, emotion, body sensation is Mother generating herself and presenting herself to us as us. Okay? So when we resist what we are resisting Mother at a very grassroots level, right? Yeah? Every moment she's giving us a gift of ourselves. And when we say no to it, we are rejecting that gift. We are resisting it. So instead of resisting it, suppose we welcome it. This thought has come. It's a gift of the Mother. I don't have to indulge that thought. I don't have to suppress it. I have to just be in a state of welcoming attention. Like that example of the child I gave you. The child will tell you, come, let's fly down the steps, it'll be fun. I don't indulge it. The child will tell you there's a monster in that room, don't go there. I'll smile, I won't listen to it. I'll just be in a state of welcoming openness. Are we together so far? So, when you fully welcome all that you take as yourself, you will suddenly find yourself in openness, and you will see that this and not your assumptions about your character and so on is your real nature. In openness, you are aware that all you think, all that appears is not you. When you welcome the body, senses and mind, you find that they are only objects of your perception which appear in you. You discover a new dimension to your beliefs. You will be absorbed by this new dimension and will see that what you took to be yourself is only an expression of what you are. Then you live completely integrated, knowingly in your totality. The next question, but I'm having some tremendous difficulties in my life and find that I cannot accept them as you say. How can I handle this conflict? From the moment you explore the proper meaning of the word surrender, you will taste real freedom, because surrender frees you from the object, the feeling of depression and conflict, and at the same time it points to the openness itself. That is the essence of surrender, and that is your real nature. Surrender calls for a true recognition of facts, facing them squarely. You must accept and welcome them in a scientific way without reaction and judgment. This is the most important. You must accept and welcome them in a scientific way without reaction and judgment. So, take an example. Give me an example of a thought that pulls you down, or pulls humanity down in general. Give me an example. My friend is doing better than me. Okay. Now, what are the facts? The fact is, maybe she's got a better appraisal from your boss than you have. That is the fact. You have concluded she's doing better than me. Examine that. When you say better, you mean a global better. Your friend may have got a better appraisal than you. But there are so many dimensions to you apart from that appraisal, right? You may have better friendships, you may have better partners, you may have a better consciousness. You may have a better connection with the source or whatever. So to accept that phrase, my friend is doing better than me, is it true? It's not true. Or the usual thing that gets most of us down, I'm not loved. What is the fact? The fact is, I wanted to meet that person. The person said, I don't want to meet you. That's the fact. Or the fact is, I told that person to do something for me and the person didn't do it. That's the fact. But my conclusion that I'm not loved, is it true? Now, I don't have to debate about it, but if you look at facts divorced from your story and narrative, then you live in openness. Now, also the fact of the moment is that my narrative is I'm not loved, or my narrative is my friend is doing better than me. Don't reject it. Don't say, no, satsangs tell me I shouldn't feel like that, I'm being ungrateful. Not like that. You just be open to that thought and that emotion that I'm not loved, and watch it. Be present to it. Instead of building more narratives and stories, welcome it. Welcome that feeling. It's here. I'm fully present to it. That is openness. Are you with me, everyone?
Is that a poem, The Guest House?
Yes, by Rumi.
But after welcoming that thought, where do you go? Like,
So see where it takes you. Do you see, don't do it out of a feeling that, yeah, if I welcome it, I'll feel better. That's not welcoming. You just stay fully present to it. And as you stay fully present to it, you'll see a space around it. You'll see that the feeling is there, but you're not entangled in it. You are the awareness space around it, and it's not affecting you so much. This you don't do with your thoughts, but when you're really in a space of welcoming, another dimension of your consciousness comes into play. Awareness comes in. And that is when welcoming, you can't welcome with a thought. One thought can't welcome another thought. It can't be a thing that I've been told to welcome, so I'm welcoming this. It doesn't happen like that. But if you're just present, you shift to an awareness space which is capable of welcoming. So, surrender calls for a true recognition of the facts, facing them squarely. You must accept and welcome them in a scientific way without reaction and judgment. Accepting is not a sacrifice nor a process of will. It's not a psychological acceptance, it's a functional acceptance. There's a difference. Psychological acceptance is the new age thought, yeah, I accept. It's good, but it's limited. Functional acceptance is to actually and truly be okay, being present to the feeling that I'm not loved, or being present to the thought that my friend's doing better than me. So there's a difference between psychological acceptance and functional acceptance.
I think both of them, when you said that a higher dimension takes place, comes into the picture, then it could happen also that higher dimension takes over everything, and the person you want to feel loved by, or you're jealous of, or whatever, is of no consequence.
Yeah, everything becomes of no consequence. You're so happy in that openness that whatever happens, you're like a person watching a child play. Your mind is like that child playing. You're not very agitated by its different games.
You were once given an exercise where you write about that whole
Yes,
scenario.
but that is still psychological acceptance. But yeah.
To begin with, at least it's easier.
Yes, yes, but it will take us away from, because that's still working in the psychological domain, but yeah. So the question is, I am having tremendous difficulty. Yeah, I read that. You must accept and welcome them in a scientific way without reaction and judgment. Accepting is not a sacrifice nor a process of will. In the openness that is inherent in our nature, there is no one who accepts. See, in psychological acceptance, there is an I who accepts this behavior. But in functional acceptance, there is no one who accepts. Acceptance or surrender is thus passive. So, this functional acceptance actually happens when you're just awareness watching. You're not an ego-centered, limited individual who's thinking. So, in openness that is inherent in our nature, there is no one who accepts. Acceptance or surrender is thus passive in its absence of a director, and active in that one remains supremely awake and alert. This is a very beautiful sentence. Acceptance or surrender is both passive and active. It's passive in its absence of a director, an I who surrenders, but active in that one remains supremely awake and alert. So it's passive because there's no I, but it's active because you're alert and attentive, ready for what presents itself. This silence is simply waiting, without anxiety of waiting. So, those of us who've done ATB in Auroville, Amir often uses this phrase, waiting without waiting. When you're really attentive, that's how you are. You're waiting without the anxiety of waiting. And in this openness, the highest intelligence operates. So, there's a problem. We've always said that consciousness is your highest protection, right? Now, what is this consciousness? The higher intelligence that you are, the higher intelligence than your mental intelligence. Now, when there's a problem, somebody has irritated me, annoyed me, whatever, if my mind jumps in, gets irritated, logs into my past narratives and projects them into this moment and creates this whole story of I'm not loved, others are better, etc., etc., you're functioning from the mental intelligence and solutions won't come. But if you are in this state of openness, where you're just observing facts, the person has not done what I asked the person to do, fact, but I'm in openness, there's no individual which leaps in with that story of I'm not loved, they are bad, blah, blah, blah. You're just watching with fascination the whole play of your mind, and you're silent, and then a higher intelligence comes in and you get a solution. So, one of my students was once telling me, it's a simple thing but it's so beautiful. He lives with somebody who's very messy and annoying, and he's particular about cleanliness. So, he said that instead of getting annoyed, I just train myself to be calm and work around the person. So, for example, if the person is going to pour things out in a messy way, I'm alert. I take the spoon from the person's hand and pour instead of getting agitated. So, if you're alert, instead of getting irritated by the person, the higher intelligence will suggest simple things for you to do to work around the person instead of constantly reacting to the person. This is a simple example, but you can apply it. See, a problem is never the lack of a solution. It's always the lack of an idea. And that idea will always escape you if you keep reacting, because that's a limited intelligence. If you're quiet, if you're attentive, then from the higher intelligence the right idea will always come to you. But so long as you keep reacting, it won't come. This silence is simply waiting without the anxiety of waiting. And in this openness, the highest intelligence operates. Beware. Take note of the reflex to fight, suppress, change, reform or sublimate a problem. This is our reflex. Whenever there's a problem, there'll be the urge to fight, suppress, change, reform or sublimate a problem. That will only lead you deeper into the conflict. In non-acceptance, you stay involved in the object, bound to it. The appropriate solution to a problem can only appear in the absence of the ego. So beautiful. The appropriate solution to a problem can only appear in the absence of the ego, the perpetrator of likes and dislikes. The ego will constantly encourage like this, don't like this. When that drops, then the solution comes. The ego often shuns, Bijal, shuns the solution. Page 5. The ego often shuns the solution that presents itself, saying, I don't like it. It does not give me pleasure. It is important to watch that when a solution appears, the ego does not steal it and hide it. Often a solution will come, the higher intelligence is speaking to you, but the ego will shun it if you are constantly reacting. In taking the emphasis off the problem and putting it on acceptance, you will find that the pressure dissolves and calm and relaxation comes to you. How will you put the emphasis off the problem and on acceptance? As usual, two ways. The way of Gyan, where you enhance the witnessing consciousness, and the way of Bhakti, where you hold the constant thought that everything that's happening in my life is an unfolding of God. So I accept. So every problem has its in taking the emphasis off the problem and putting it on acceptance, you will find that the pressure dissolves and calm and relaxation comes to you. Every problem has its solution, even though the mind and its memory cannot fully comprehend the problem or the solution. In surrendering to the problem, you are open to the known and the unknown in the problematic situation, and understanding operates freshly. So when you surrender to the problem, you are open to the known and the unknown. But when you're not surrendered, you are open only to the known. I know these possibilities, which of them should latch on, whatever. But when you surrender to the problem, you become open to the unknown also. What is it to become open to the unknown? I'm okay whichever way it goes. I'll be looked after. To be open to the known is I want only this known outcome. And if it doesn't go that way, it's terrible. But to be open to the unknown is I'm fine. I'm present, I'm watchful, let's see where it leads. In surrendering to the problem, you are open to the unknown and to the known and the unknown in the problematic situation. And understanding operates freshly. In silent surrender, there is bliss and prayer without request or demand. Such a beautiful line. In silent surrender, there is bliss, happiness and prayer. Mother, you come in, without request or demand. There is no doer, experiencer, lover or beloved. there is only a divine current. You see that the very act of welcoming is itself the solution to the problem, and the action which follows your comprehension is very straightforward. When you become familiar with the act of surrender, truth will solicit you unsought. Solicit means come to you, escort you. When you become familiar with the act of surrender, truth will come to you, truth will solicit you unsought. Clear? Any questions? Now these are words of Osho. Anger is there, sex is there, greed is there. You have not created them. They are given facts of life, just like your eyes and your hands. You can call them names. You can call them ugly or beautiful or whatsoever you like, but you cannot kill them. Nothing can be killed out of existence. Nothing can be destroyed. Tantra says a transformation is possible, but destruction, no. And a transformation comes when you accept your total being. Same thing what John Klein was saying. Transformation comes when you accept your total being. Then suddenly everything falls in line. Then everything takes its own place. Denying then, anger is also absorbed. Denying nothing. There's a misprint, not denying then. Denying nothing, anger is also absorbed. Greed is also absorbed. Then without trying to cut anything out of your being, your whole being rearranges itself. If you accept and say yes, a rearrangement happens. And whereas before there was a noisy clamor inside, now a melody, a music is born. A harmony comes in. It's beautiful. What he's saying is when you are just present to anger without wishing it away, without indulging it, it gets transformed because you're bringing consciousness to it. If you accept and say yes, a rearrangement happens. And whereas before there was a noisy clamor inside, now a melody, a music is born, a harmony comes in. Dharmata means that everything has its own elementary nature. If you remain in your inner abode is awareness. Everything by and by will dissolve in its own natural element. You are the disturber. If you remain inside your being in the alay, the inner sky, in that absolute purity, just like the sky, clouds come and go. No trace is left. Actions come and go. Thoughts come and go. Many things happen, but inside, deep down, nothing happens. Rumi's words, the news outside is full of storm and thunder, but the real news is the news inside, that there's no news at all. In the realm of awareness, nothing is happening. Actions come and go. Thoughts come and go. Many things happen, but inside, deep down, nothing happens. There you simply are. Only existences. No actions reach, no thoughts reach. So what Osho is saying is that a beautiful way to transform yourself is to drop resistance towards whatever arises as you. Because the more you tell yourself, I shouldn't get angry, more you're feeding the energy of anger, right? But if you're just present, the anger too is a game the child mind is playing. Remember what we said, the child is playing. You don't tell it to shut up. If it's saying there's a monster there, fight the monster or run away from the monster. You just watch its game. You don't tell it, yes, yes, let's go ahead and fly down the steps. You just watch it. You're present to it without taking it very seriously. And that, he says, everything has a dharmata, an elementary nature. If you just remain present to it, everything falls into place. This presence is what the Buddha calls mindfulness. And mindfulness brings correct ordering to everything. If you are just alert, everything falls into place by itself. So Osho gives a beautiful story here. He says, it happened. The master of Linchi was a great master, his master died. The master was a well-known man, but Linchi was even more well-known than the master, because the master was a silent man, and through Linchi he had become very famous in fact. Then the master died, and Linchi was also known to be enlightened, and a crowd of thousands gathered to pay their respects and bid him the last farewell. And they saw Linchi crying and weeping, and tears flowing down like a small child whose mother has died. People could not believe it because they thought that he had attained and he was crying like a small child. You lose respect for such a master. This is okay when a person is ignorant, but when a person is awakened and he himself has been teaching that the innermost nature is immortal, eternal, it never dies. He knew that his master couldn't have died. So how was he crying like a baby? So why now? A few who were very intimate to Linchi, they came to him and told him, it is not good, and what will people think of you? Already there's a rumor. People are thinking that they were wrong in thinking that you have attained. Your whole prestige is at stake. You stop crying, and a man like you need not cry. Linchi said, but what can I do? Tears are coming. It is their dharmata, their elemental nature. And who am I to stop them? I neither reject nor accept. I remain inside myself. Now tears are flowing, nothing can be done. If the prestige is at stake, let it be. If people think I'm not enlightened, that is their own business. What can I do? I have left the doer long ago. There is no longer any doer. It is simply happening. These eyes are crying and weeping on their own accord, because they will not be able to see the master again. And it was a nourishment to them. They lived on that food. I know very well that the soul is eternal. Nobody ever dies. But how to teach these eyes? What to tell them? They don't listen. They don't have any ears. How to teach these eyes not to weep, not to cry, that life is eternal? And who am I? It is their business. If they feel like crying, they are crying. Such a beautiful story. So, emotions are natural. We don't have to stunt our emotions, but we have to feel them out fully. We sort of play so many mind games with our emotions that they don't live their whole lifespan out. Now Linchi, deep down, he was unaffected because there was no Linchi to be affected. But he felt out his emotion fully without social conditioning or whatever hampering it. And I'm sure the next day he would be fine because he felt it out fully. Does that mean that if a strong emotion of anger comes and I want to yell at a person, I yell and work it out? Not really, because if you're really present to the emotion of anger, you'll be present, you'll feel it as a thought, you'll feel it as sensations in your body, you'll be fully present to it. If you bring in the narrative of the other person, he always does this, is unfair, blah, blah, blah. You're converting the raw emotion to thought. You're not feeling out the raw emotion. The raw emotion always has a counterpart in your body. You bring attention to that and see. Yesterday in our meditation class, actually we did this. When an emotion comes, if you're conscious, it will always have a counterpart in your body. Now, suppose the counterpart for anger is a burning in my belly. The moment I label it as burning, I'm not present to it. Can you experience the sensation also as just a sensation without labeling it? We don't allow an experience to be full because we bring in labels, right? So yesterday our meditation class was called Beyond Labels. So moment you label the emotion, other labels will come in, labels for this person, this, that, whatever. Also, when you go a step further and feel that emotion as a sensation in your body, the moment you label that sensation, you're not feeling the sensation fully. You have to pay attention to that sensation with a first timer's attention, as if you've never felt that sensation ever before in your life. Don't label it and just feel out the whole sensation. Be present to what life gives you without labels and narratives. Then you experience the moment fully. Otherwise, thought robs you of the real experience. Labels, we think the moment we label it, we know it. But don't label it, then you'll be in openness, you'll be in curiosity, you'll want to know it because it's unknown. That feeling of been there, done that doesn't come. The moment you label it, okay, it's a burning in my belly, anger, been there, done that. So there's no curiosity to explore it any further, or the curiosity will be less. But if you're present to it without labels, that's when the dharmata of the object unfolds. That's when the truth of it unfolds and you're just aware. Are we all together so far? So now Savitri, this is her state of this total disappearance of the person. In fact, in Buddha, Nirvana, if you go to its etymological meaning, it means extinguished. Every point that I call me, myself is extinguished. There's no person. Thinking happens, but there's no person who thinks. Walking happens, but there's no person who walks. So that is the state described in this passage. Aloof, standing back, detached and calm. This is Savitri's experience, of course, from the canto on Nirvana. Aloof and standing back, detached and calm, a witness of the drama of herself, a student of her own interior scene. She was a witness of the drama, the child playing. She was not involved in it, she was just witnessing it. She watched the passion and the toil of life and heard in the crowded thoroughfares, passages of mind, the unceasing tread and passage of her thoughts. All she allowed to rise that chose to stir, calling, compelling not, forbidding not. She left all to the process formed in time and the free initiative of nature's will. So this sums up what we've been talking about. Calling, attached to nothing, compelling nothing, resisting nothing, forbidding nothing. She left all to the process formed in time and the free initiative of nature's will. She didn't initiate anything. So that's a phrase from the Gita, Krishna telling Arjun, Sarvaram Parityagi, give up any initiator will. Don't initiate anything out of the mind. Let nature initiate whatever it does and just step back and observe. She left all to the process formed in time and the free initiative of nature's will. Thus, following the complex human play, she heard the prompter's voice behind the scenes, perceived the original libretto. Libretto is lyrics of a composition, original composition's set, and the organ theme of the composer's force. So this is of course a metaphor. It's like if life is a composition, in silence she could perceive the different lyrics of that composition. All she beheld that surges from man's depths, the animal instincts prowling mid life's trees, the impulses that whisper to the heart, and passion's thunder chase sweeping the nerves. It's like passion is a thunder sweeping through the nerves. How beautifully he uses language. And passion's thunder chase sweeping the nerves. She saw the powers that stare from the abyss, from the subconscient, inconscient. She saw the powers that stare from there, and the wordless life that liberates the soul, the light of the superconscient. Everything was visible to her. So let's just read this passage without explanation. Aloof and standing back, detached and calm, a witness of the drama of herself, a student of her own interior scene. She watched the passion and toil of life and heard in the crowded thoroughfares of mind the unceasing tread and passage of her thoughts, all she allowed to rise that chose to stir, calling, compelling not, forbidding not. She left all to the process formed in time and the free initiative of nature's will, thus following the complex human play. She heard the prompter's voice behind the scenes, perceived the original libretto set and the organ theme of the composer force. All she beheld that surges from man's depths and the animal instincts prowling mid life's trees, the impulses that whisper to the heart and passion's thunder chase sweeping the nerves. She saw the powers that stare from the abyss and the wordless light that liberates the soul. Any questions? Otherwise, we sit to assimilate. The topic of our talk today was freedom from the mirage. What is a mirage? In a desert, when we are very thirsty, often we perceive an optical illusion of an oasis because of the play of light on the sand. We think there's water. It makes us happy till we go there and discover that there is no water there. This is a metaphor for us. Constantly we feel that if I spend time with this person, I'll be happy. We look forward to an evening out, buying clothes. But very often, when we come to that moment, like in a mirage, there's no water there. Our thirst for happiness remains unquenched. How do we get freedom from this mirage? That's what we explored today. So every thought that comes, when I identify with it, is offering for me to buy into a mirage. But I have a choice of stepping back and observing the thought, not resisting it, because whatever I resist persists. I regard the thoughts as a child playing in my mind. A child invites me to a game of flying down the steps, promising me joy out of the game. I don't play out the game, I just smile. A child playing with me scares me with the thought of a monster in the next room. I smile at the child without indulging the fear offered. So, I stay in a state of welcoming. I step out and welcome thoughts, just observing them. When I do that, another dimension of consciousness arises. Why? Because the machinery that I am plays a strange game with me. It generates thoughts, and every time I respond to them with craving and aversion, like, dislike, it strengthens the sense of I, the one who craves or is averse. And so long as there's an I will keep chasing mirages to further strengthen the I. But to any thought that comes, if I don't react with like or dislike, if I accept that real surrender to the mother is not surrender to my mental notion of her. The mother is generating myself every moment and giving it as a gift to me. When I reject what arises in me, then I'm really in a state of non-surrender to the mother, actually. So if I surrender to what is, if I say an open-hearted yes to the arising of every emotion, every thought, without indulging it, without suppressing it, that is true surrender. So a thought comes, I'm not loved. I don't indulge that thought. I don't suppress it. I don't endorse the content of the thought. I don't say yes to the story in the thought. I simply say yes to its arising. Just the way I'm not saying yes to the propositions of the game that the child offers me, but I say yes to the play of the child. So I say a yes to every thought, every emotion that arises, and pay complete attention to it. When I pay that kind of attention, I'll see that every emotion has a physical counterpart in the body. Usually I'm so controlled by the emotion that I don't pay attention to the body. But when I'm not controlled by it, I start looking into my body. I'll feel an emotion. Suppose the anger is a burning in my belly. I'll resist the temptation to even label it as burning. I pay attention with a first-timer's attention. not with the jaded, been there, done that. The moment I label something, I feel I know it and I lose interest in it. But when I stay with the unknown, I'm curious, I'm attentive, I'm waiting without the agitation of waiting. And in that waiting, all the beauty of life unfolds. There is no one who thinks, but thinking happens. In that state, all the solutions come. When there's a problem, if I react at a mental level, I won't see the solution, because the problem is never the lack of a solution, it's the lack of an idea. But when I'm open and attentive, from the higher intelligence, the action comes, the right idea comes, and the problem is resolved. So just for half a minute, see if you can actually experience this. Watch your mindscape, the different topographies that arise and pass away in your mind as thoughts and emotions. And just be present to them. Catch the resistance to some thoughts or the attachment to some thoughts. I want to think more of this. I don't want to think that. Be present to that also. Say yes to the resistance also. You're not saying yes to the content of the thought and emotions. You're just saying an open-hearted yes to their arisings. See if you can open your eyes also and maintain that state of just welcoming. And fold your hands together in a namaste at the heart. Let's conclude with 3 Oms. Om.